Well remembered.
I know Lucy would just have my guts for garters if I didn't.
Yeah, it's amazing the number of times I run online groups and suddenly go, oh my goodness, I've forgotten to press record.
Right, I'm just going to do the intro. Oh, hang on. I've got to do, it's like multitasking because I've got to admit people and keep my eye on the fact that I need to admit people. Right, okay. So, welcome to the November Knowledge Share. And this Knowledge Share has been generously sponsored by Opinion Hub. Research rooms, sensory lab, data collection and fieldwork, based in London with nationwide coverage. So thank you very much. And under there, I've written record with lots of exclamation marks. Right, I'm going to make you co-presenter, Alan. And
okay.
Just give me a sec. And you can start talking while I admit people.
Okay, well, I'll just share my screen and then we'll go from there.
Anyway, thank you very much to Alan for doing this, what I think is going to be a fascinating presentation. And enjoy. And if you've got any questions, do put them in the chat or wait till at the end, whichever you prefer.
Right. Hopefully everybody can see the presentation now. I will kick off. I've tried to keep the kind of length of this short and punchy. We know a lot, and I guess one of the challenges in presenting to this group, which you guys are my peers and betters in many respects. There's always that extra frisson when you're presenting to other researchers, which makes it a kind of slightly anxious, slightly scary experience. But we'll muddle through the best we can. I think the thing that I just wanted to say right at the outset is that we sharing here a kind of fraction of the knowledge we've built in this age group over a number of years. So it's a kind of introduction. It's a shop window, if you like, of some of the learnings that we've had, and really think of it as a kind of thought starter. Hopefully, if there's a prompt that you can go away with to your clients and say, there may be some things that we're missing here. It's a new topic of conversation to have. It's something else to introduce into your client relationships, I would hope. So the second Adolescents, a little bit about us first. I've been a member of the ICG for many, many years, but I guess I'm a little bit quieter. You might not have seen my name on the e-group as much as some of the others of you are on there, but it's always been a membership that I value significantly, because you kind of absorb knowledge, I think, and one of the best things I think I've experienced recently is that sort of buddying system where you really just get to know one or two people particularly well, and there are certainly some familiar names that have joined us today, so nice to see you. The Buzz is an insights-driven consultancy, I guess, and we focus very much on understanding the emotions around consumption decisions and life decisions, and we do both commercial and social research. We've always kept a very broad church. We believe that the sensitivity that you require in social research has a benefit in terms of the commercial work that we do for brands and for agencies. And our social research will cover things like, believe it or not, domestic violence, victims of rape, parents whose children have been sadly subject to serious sexual assault. So very, deeply sensitive areas where there is a lot of emotion present, and we need to helped process and assess and analyze that. And that sensitivity, I think, is sometimes missing at the pace that we're asked to work with on the commercial side of things. Equally, the kind of clients on our social research side and the public sector particularly, and in health, sometimes need the brevity and the speed of response to actually act on the insights that are generated. So it's a kind of symbiotic relationship that we've maintained. We do qualitative and quantitative work, and really believe passionately in the confluence of those two disciplines as well. So I thought I'd start off really just by introducing you. I'm sure you're all aware of this. We've just had the word of the year for 2023, which bizarrely is AI. I didn't know that was a word, but it certainly is now. Last year, it was permacrisis. An extended period of instability and insecurity when all around you seems uncertain. It's natural to be cautious, to keep a tidy ship and to kind of navigate towards areas of relative calm. And we've certainly experienced a lot of that, I think, from our client base over the last 18 months or so. And it wouldn't be a presentation from us without some kind of Tom Fishburne reference. So, I'm sure some of you might be smiling inwardly or grimacing inwardly, because these are the things that have permeated our year of 2023 so far. And I think it kind of captures in a slightly light tone. And particularly this one, I can't remember. I've lost track of the number of projects that we have done proposals for, and then had delays, or can we rewrite them, or our objectives have changed, or somebody else has come in and wants us to take another look at those. Maybe we've got the sample wrong. We need to redo that, and then actually, you know what, we've taken so long to get to this point that it's not worth doing anymore. And I've never really known a period like it in the 20 years that we've been in business. And this kind of last one, I think, is the kind of crux of what I want to share with you today, is that we spend time sitting around in meetings talking about target markets as a way of being efficient in our marketing and our understanding, and it often ends around 49 or 54, and then everybody else gets lumped together. And our thinking, kind of during the last start of the perma crisis, which was a pandemic, was, we've always been that sort of generalist social and commercial research. Maybe now's the time that we should develop a specialism. And we look back at the work that we'd done for clients like One Leisure and Carnival Cruises and Marks and Spencer's and McCarthy and Stone, and realized that actually a lot of that work was very much centered in kind of what is our age group. My age group, and we just wondered, what was happening in that sort of generation, how they were dealing with the pandemic, how they were coping with all of the challenges that was bringing into their lives, and we knew that there were some big differences in the age group, but we didn't really understand it in a lot of detail. So we started to just chat to people. We set up WhatsApp groups and did it in a very shall I say cost effective or free way, and just got to know some people in this age group, and there was a lot of things that we felt made this age group maybe that kind of potential, and currently that sort of oasis. Where do you find in a landscape of permacrisis? Where do you find where the spend, the brand affinity that brands crave, and dare I say it, even some growth. So just to share a few facts with you, I'm sure this is probably common knowledge, but some of the figures on here are quite stark. So this is an ONS survey on wealth and assets, and you can see, by age group, the 55 to under state pension age and state pension age and over, the share of overall wealth that our generation, my generation, has. And the contributors to that, when you think about it, are fairly obvious, and there's some legacy aspects here. So, we started with grant-funded education. A lot of people in this age group who had the benefit of further education and additional qualifications since then, that benefited from inheritance and property ownership. Private pensions became the thing to have, while this generation is still at work. There's relative kind of financial market stability over that period. And remember, the formative years of this generation were in the kind of, Thatcher, yuppie, materialistic kind of have a go mentality, and we still see signs of that when we talk to people in this age group. The other thing that I think is kind of quite remarkable, and has maybe run counterintuitive to some of the general press coverage, is our generation's ability to ride out lockdown, and maybe to thrive or to find, pivot is the kind of phrase to use. And a lot of people who decided that enough was enough, and maybe they'll start a business of their own, or they'll turn a hobby into a business, or they will live a simpler life and actually just leave the job market. So all of that, I guess, is kind of showing you the bleeding obvious. These are well-known facts and factors. And it's increased. So the pandemic actually impacted the situation for the better for our group, which again is something that you may or may not know. But a survey from the kind of Resolution Foundation shows, that this group has, and particularly the older end of the group that we talk about, has come out of the pandemic in a better overall sort of financial position than younger age groups. And the contributors for that are things like the pension performance over those kind of relative years of stability, starting a pension early, the triple lock for those of the state pension age, the increasing value of the asset bases that they have, and then again, something that we picked up on was a kind of change in attitude to later life. The willingness to do more with less, or actually, as we'll go on to see, to get more out of life with less. And that led to the thing that has been dubbed the kind of great resignation, along with sort of quiet quitting. It's affected some of the sectors of the economy significantly. So in doing a lot of work with the NHS, a lot of senior NHS decision makers, both on the healthcare and the administrative side, have decided, enough's enough, and real kind of cause for concern for the NHS going forward. The ability to replace experience takes some time. And our chats with people over the last 2 or 3 years, and I say chats because that's the limit of what we've done. We've obviously the client base that we have developed over this time gives us the opportunity to do paid for work. So these are kind of shared observations from a number of client-led projects, and what we're doing, I guess, is sifting out the general findings, things that are consensus or apply across the age ranges. But some of the things that we found out, just after lockdown, when the economy started up again, were captured by these kind of comments and thoughts. And I think that has become quite a common, almost endemic feeling that people either act on or contemplate acting on, and it's the level of kind of procrastination that has really just sort of slightly slowed down the kind of great resignation figures, even though there is some data that says it might still be on the increase. So in some respects, this age group and the value of this age group are hidden in plain sight. This is just a graphic that I stole. So it actually kind of focuses on 50 plus, whereas, we've tended to call this 55 and overs. But there are 25 million people there, 35% of the population. And, they hold 80% of the nation's wealth. And those two kind of factors together really leave you with a massive question mark as to why brands and marketing communications specialists and strategists aren't paying more attention to this age group, because there's a whole body of research, and ours is included within that basically says once you get to 55, maybe 50, you start to be overlooked. The kind of marketing and brand communications that come with you is clearly not aimed at your age range, even if the product is. And some of the biggest insults, it came across as insulting, is the day the kind of saga direct mail lands on your doormat in the hallway, or the saga holidays, or the care home advertising, funeral care, and those wonderful assisted seats that kind of catapult you into a standing position, because every 55-year-old needs something like that to look forward to. So we've got this kind of huge spend and a significant proportion of the consumption base, which are very, very active. And the kind of final point, is just look at the average age of marketing teams now, and certainly in many, I think London-centric in particular, the average age of marketing teams is almost under 30 these days. So, although I've covered this group as though it's a big lump of people, age, and it's defined by age because that's the currency we work in. But age no longer defines the groups that we've found in this broad kind of swathe of the population. So think of I guess the labels are Gen X and Boomers kind of broadly taken together. We found this to be an incredibly diverse group of people. And I think the message today is, not really understanding these older consumers. Brands are really not just missing out on the opportunity. The way they're trying to communicate with this group at the moment is actually damaging that opportunity, both now and for the near future. And that's quite a serious conclusion, I think, to reach from the work that we've done. But you can even pinpoint where they live. I found this map, which is kind of where Gen X in yellow over indexes and where Boomers over index. Boomers naturally more widespread and profligate than Gen X, which is a tighter kind of definition. It doesn't quite correlate to the Brexit voting maps, but you can kind of see where some of the similarities might be. And being able to kind of get to this level of granularity, again, sort of just raises the question as to why they're being overlooked and mass marketed to in the way that they are, because they are now involved in more than 25% of property investments, largely on behalf of their children where they can. Remember, Gen X are the fastest growing ownership of electrical vehicles. Boomers have got the greatest proportions of hybrid vehicles because they haven't quite, got the confidence and trust to go fully electric. They're tech hungry, they're tech literate. Remember, a lot of the kind of biggest technology businesses were started by Gen X aged entrepreneurs. And what we found that's quite interesting is that there's a significant proportion who, having finished with all those parental responsibilities, if you ever do finish with them, have often found themselves being single again, and kind of playing the dating game. And if you look at some of the data around online dating apps, there's significant proportions of 55 and overs that are on there. So our tendency has been to look at a typical kind of planning order. You think about TGI breakdowns and the like, and you often see this kind of simple breakdown where 55 plus is kind of everybody else. And what we're really saying is, this is no longer good enough. There's too much opportunity being wasted by thinking in this kind of slightly outdated way. And the signs of discontent are growing, I think. There's a book that was published, I think, last week, which is Revolting Women, which is a great title, but it is why midlife women who are high achievers, and particularly in kind of marketing and senior admin and positions of influence, are actually just leaving the workplace. So Lucy Ryan's the author, well worth having a look at. And there's also, a kind of increasing set of online backlash, if you like. So I've just picked out a couple of things. Headline in Campaign, that said that over 60s, somebody had actually done the analysis on this. I'm sure there was some AI involved, but they'd looked at something like 170,000 adverts and assessed that over 60s make up just 4% of the people that are actually shown in those kind of TV ads from across the world. This movement called ageism is never in style is really starting to kind of cut through. So it started in fashion, recognizing that mid-aged women need a slightly different cut in the design of what they might wear, that actually is accentuates what they want to accentuate in terms of their look and their projected image. And I don't know whether you caught this, but I've certainly posted this online, a campaign called I Look My Age. I don't know whether this will play, because I was a little bit late getting to the scene today, but if it doesn't play, somebody please tell me. And if you can't,
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm 49 3/4, and I look my age.
Hello, my name is Julie. I'm 56 and I look my age.
Hi, I'm Kwabi. I'm 55 years old and I look my age.
I'm Skylar.
I can hear
I'm
but not see.
48 and I look
Okay.
my age.
I'm Grace. I'm 56 and I look my age.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm 63 and I look my age.
So sorry you can't see that. I'll just kind of skip to the end.
I'm 92 years old. I look my age, but inside I do not feel 92 years old.
So it's effectively a campaign that shows a range of different women from all walks of life, literally just fronting up to a selfie video, telling everybody how old they are, and that they're happy to look their age. And some, in all honesty, some people look older than they say they do, and you're kind of quite surprised, and other people look, pretty good for their age. I don't know whether I've ever gonna have the bottle to do it myself, but for the benefit of you guys, I'm 63 and I look my age, and probably do significantly look my age. So just let's have a look with that kind of as a backdrop on the way that older age groups are kind of portrayed. So this is just some work that is kind of mock-ups, if you like, but based on real reports and report titles that have appeared online, with the kind of images that you see. So getting over 50s back into work is a government priority. COVID has increased over 60s confidence with tech. You can kind of get a sense of the type of thing. If we change the images, it's a completely different look and feel. And in many respects, that's what our people, our kind of friends in this age group are telling us, that this kind of stereotypical imagery just is not appropriate anymore for them in that age group. So we found kind of two significant groups in the work that we've done for clients who serve this market in particular. And in some respects, it's an attitudinal split. On the one hand, you've got people who are kind of resigned to their fate, let's say. There's nothing I can do about my future. And then there's an alternative view, and the kind of psychologists would call this an external and an internal locus of control, which some of you may well have heard of. But the internal locus of control are planning their future. They've got a vision of what they want to do and what they want to yet achieve. So they do things rather than things always seem to happening to them. They make things happen. It's more like, why not do this rather than why bother? And rather than kind of focusing on the simple things in life now and kind of taking that pre-retiree view of the world, the alternative group are actually relishing a new challenge. And as I said, when you look at the kind of number of entrepreneurs that are in this age group, and I would include most of you that are listening to this as entrepreneurs in this age group, irrespective of whether you started your research consultancies and businesses 20 years ago like I did, or 5 years ago. You are an entrepreneur in this age group, and many people have left a career job to actually just have a go, because they're mindful and want to do that sort of thing. And it particularly comes down to kind of relationships with family, which is quite an interesting dynamic. So the external locus of control is very much being there for the family, because that's the role that they're happy with, or because that's the role that's expected of them. And the alternative guys are, family's still important, but they also recognize that, they've got their own lives to live, the things that they want to do. And that they are actually going to go and do them. So it's not necessarily that families are less important. It's just that they have got an equal billing, if you like, with the way that those individuals want to live their own life. And it also kind of spills through into behavior and consumption, as you'd expect. So, you know, when we looked at studies and quant studies on this, we found that our internal locus people, compared to the average consumer, are 45% more likely to place a high importance on their clothing budget. They're more likely to frequent restaurants, eat out more regularly, spend more on eating out. They're more likely to have used air travel, particularly in the last 12 months, you know, post-COVID. These are the people who are, you know, keen to rediscover travel and actually make up for some lost time. And you know, 1 in 4 are more likely to enjoy art and music, and particularly live music in that sense. In the opposing group, it's not meant to be depressing, but it does read, this chart does read that way, because these are the people where we've got the kind of sandwich generation, people who are kind of caring for parents and maybe grandchildren at the same time. They tend to be a little bit more overweight. They've got mobility related issues, but potentially, you know, those two being related. But they don't see their time as their own. They don't have control over their time. And that's a key difference. So they don't have that kind of same impetus to go out and enjoy some of the things in life that maybe they would do. They're more likely to be concerned over their financial health in the future, and much more likely to feel lonely in the way that they kind of approach their lives. And just to kind of show you how that kind of came to life, this is some work we did for McCarthy and Stone a little while ago. But you know, one of the kind of key insights, I think, that we kind of showed them, and a challenge to them as a business, because they had to move their proposition from taking care of people's needs for them, which was kind of how they positioned it, but also very much how people understood the retirement living option to be, to change that, to kind of enable people to use an earlier move into retirement living as a way of staying confident and keeping control and being self-sufficient, because they were freeing up some asset resource. They were enabling them to do some of the things that they wanted. And that kind of mindset of being tied into the family home is not that kind of that group's dominant thought. So you can see that, you know, that amongst the green line of the people who are likely to consider retirement living category, it's very much the biggest fear as I get older is losing control, being organized, liking to make decisions, you know, when I've got all the facts in front of me, and planning in advance are the kind of characteristics that really needed to be promoted and brought into the marketing communication for McCarthy and Stone. And the other thing that I think it would be interesting to share with you is a lot of our work has obviously been based on quant studies. And so often in data sets, we focus on the kind of normalized, you know, the big majority data sets, those that have got the most interrelationships, because the clients want to provide a kind of mass market, consistent messaging. And then qualitatively, you get a much bigger, richer understanding, we found, if you can kind of select some outliers, maybe, that are atypical of that normalized kind of data set, to understand maybe where the early adopters are, or the early considerers, the people who are likely to be more dynamic and act that way, and isolate those people. And again, you may have seen this. Mark Ritson recently gave this as an example, when McDonald's were looking to understand why they were selling shakes in a morning slot, in an early morning slot of the day. They went to talk to people outside the cafes and talk to those early morning shake buyers, and found, this is in the States, obviously, and if you've ever driven in the States, they are long, boring drives. You get hypnotized by the drum of the tires over those concrete slabs on the freeways. But when they were doing those kind of trips, the shake would sit and stay cold for hours. They could sip on it all day long. The way it was packaged, didn't cause any risk, and it was just with them for the whole drive. So it was a great value product. And what they found out was that you could improve that by flavored derivatives, adding pieces of fruit, things that you have to suck particularly hard to get up the straw. That type of thing were those kind of interesting, unpredictable moments, which is why the kind of McDonald's shakes has refreshed and continues to be a really successful product. Our outliers, people who we went to talk to, were people like Craig, who was the 2021 Northern Soul Dance Champion. And this is him in his moment of triumph in the finals at the Tower Ballroom in Blackpool. And, he lived, not lived for Northern Soul, but it was such an important part of his life. It was the reason he worked out. It was the reason he stayed fit. He wouldn't jog if it wasn't the fact that he wanted to stay on the dance floor. And you can see the kind of two finalists behind him there are significantly younger than Craig was. But he was too modest to say he wiped the floor with them, but he actually did. And then Monica Davis is somebody who we kind of uncovered, who was a former lingerie model. Hopefully nobody's offended by the imagery here, but she certainly wasn't. And she discovered kind of tattoos later on in life. And bizarrely, since she's more inked now, she's got a lot more commissions. And then Julie, who some of you may know her from Instagram. She's now an online influencer, but for 20 odd years she was a mom and worked in a school as a special needs assistant. She kind of got hit by a triple whammy of breast cancer and menopause, and then quite painful symptoms from dyes that she'd used because she was prematurely going grey, and she'd used lots of dyes over the years to kind of stay blonde. And at this particular kind of confluence in her life, she's decided to let it all go, and she is what is called online a silver sister, and now is a very, very successful influencer and promoter of kind of clean cosmetics, amongst other things, and a very down to earth, very simple kind of influencer. But it's certainly a career path that she wouldn't have necessarily contemplated as a special needs assistant. And then Steve, I honestly don't know his surname, because Steve was in one of our groups that we did for a client of ours, Warner Leisure, who specialise in adult brakes, and had done that classic brand thing where they kind of 30 years ago said, we're going to make holiday destinations that are for adults, no children allowed, and we're going to focus it on the 55s and overs. And then they realized kind of 25, 30 years on that the core business was now 75 and 80-year-olds, and that a 55-year-old in the 2020s is a very different animal from how it was in the kind of early 90s. So his attitude was kind of quite outspoken. He'd obviously been quite lucky in terms of creating his own wealth, but the thing that struck me about the interaction was that he didn't see himself as a kind of mid-age person. He didn't act that way. he felt. And when he saw guys that were acting their age, he didn't have anything in common with them anymore. And you know, one of the things we often ask people when we get them to introduce themselves in qualitative research is, you know, when you look in the mirror, how old do you think you are? And you know, once people understand kind of the freedom that they've got, the most common answer is somewhere between 21 and 28, because that's how you feel inside. And I think that's the kind of the essence behind calling this group the second adolescents, because they're able to do now in life, and Steve was a great example of this, and it's not just about materialistic things, it's about having the freedom to do what you want. They are living a second adolescent. They're doing the things that they couldn't do the first time round because they didn't have the knowledge or the experience, or they certainly didn't have the kind of financial basis to do so. So how do we target and reach second adolescents, as we're labeling these people now? I guess there are two approaches, two pathways that I could share with you in terms of our experience. Well, the first one is, you know, starting off by sizing and valuing the kind of contribution of this group using surveys of existing customers, and always trying to kind of correlate that with data that reflects real behavior. So, you know, portfolio analysis and basket size or spend levels, that type of thing. And then a kind of deep dive then qualitatively to understand the kind of specifics of the relationships at a kind of attitudinal and emotional level, and a kind of dynamic decision-making level. So what are the things that they notice? What are the things that have impacted them recently, that are shaping their opinions? So that's the kind of qualitative element. And then we start to get into what we feel is so often misaligned, which is that kind of creative messaging, really to make sure it is communicating in the way that it, and not alienating or talking down to and misrepresenting how these people see themselves. And then, you know, once or twice we've been able to kind of test and measure campaigns, and come up with ways of actually encouraging and incentivizing the kind of referral activity, because these people are very good, very enthusiastic referrers of experiences and products, both within their kind of immediate social networks, but also increasingly now across wider social networks. And the second pathway is, assume you've got a significant penetration of second adolescents in your customer set, because you should have. If you're in any way touching that kind of over 55s market, you know, by definition, you will have this kind of mindset, this kind of slightly different, more dynamic consumer within your existing customer set. And I guess another technique that grew out of our kind of pandemic experience was to kind of simplify something into something we call just enough research. So certainly not to be confused with the book on how to draw sampling. I can't remember the author now, but there is a book out there called Just Enough Research as well, which talks about how to construct a sample. This is kind of smashing together two techniques. So making sure that people are very informed, so kind of wisdom of crowds type approach. So people have got some experience and recent experience of a particular category, and then some user experience kind of academic work done by MIT and Nielsen, which basically said, you know, once in user experience research or service experience research, once you've kind of done 8 or 10 interviews, you've pretty much mapped all of the insights you're gonna find to improve that experience. So we tend to kind of increase that just to kind of cover for interviews that aren't as full and as useful as they can be, and maybe we do kind of 10 or 12 quite detailed depth interviews at a qualitative level with people who are very carefully screened in. So attitudinally, they're in the right kind of mindset and framework. That's reflected in some of the behavior, the consumption behavior. And then we talk to them about the category or the particular brand in a way that gives them the chance to really be honest about how they feel about it and the communications and what they're looking for as individuals. And then it's about building an approach which engages, maybe by bringing those people into an online panel to collaborate and start to co-create on product, and particularly on marketing, to get the language right and the imagery right pre-campaign, and then again to kind of test and measure campaigns, because we do feel that the insights in this group are illuminating from a consumption point of view, but from a communication point of view, that's where the big hole is, because they just don't associate themselves with the kind of marketing communication messages that are being put out. So just to kind of wrap up, I've absolutely no idea how long I've been rabbiting on for, so bear with me, but we're basically saying that 55 plus and over as a planning landscape is no longer good enough. It's not forensic enough for the consumers that we find within that age group. So the over 55s are an opportunity for so many brands, just because of the level of wealth and spending power that is there, and is particularly there amongst our second adolescent group, amongst those people who are in control and planned and have the means to spend money. It's not about wealth per se. It's not about affluence. It's about a desire to act and to do what they want when they want to do it. So that dynamic decision making is much less considered, much more spontaneous than the other group. And it really stems from the kind of desire to get the most from life. So how to kind of think about this as kind of insight providers? Spend some time, encourage your clients to get to know them properly. And a lot of this is through observation and listening. And the differences will become, very, very obvious. They were to us. I'm sure we don't do anything any different from any of the other people online right now. But then it's about taking a critical look at the brand's communication, and particularly its social associations, because the other big anomaly is the fact that the marketers assume that 55s and overs don't really engage with social media, and nothing could be further from the truth. They might be a little bit stuck in Facebook, but they are users of TikTok and of Instagram too. So do those communications patronize and alienate, or do they support and engage? And it's quite a binary measure, but they will tell you very, very quickly. The second adolescents particularly will tell you, which category your communications are falling into and what specifically is patronizing or alienating about them. And visual references are really important. So that kind of report comparison, the sort of front page report comparison that I showed a little while ago, has come out of one of the online campaigns, that has commissioned an image bank that is very much more in line with the kind of second adolescence rather than the Google Images version of what being over 55 looks and feels like. the experience needs to be effortless. These people, get really pissed off very, very quickly if there's anything too complicated. I haven't got time for that sort of thing. They want it to be seamless, and they want it to be smooth. I think is the word that we found was used most often. And then open up as many channels for feedback as you can, because you will definitely get it. We found levels of brand loyalty are very significant here, but it's not necessarily to legacy brands. The second adolescents adopt new brands as they come, if they mirror their values, or they're particularly attractive, or they have maybe a more of a social or ethical standpoint to give. They brand affinity levels are very, very strong, but also quite dynamic as well amongst this group, and so the feedback channels are really, really important. And the idea of kind of panels or dipping into the second adolescence on a regular basis, really, really important, which is great for regular business and communication and interaction with clients as well. So yeah, sorry about the pun, but if you want to get ahead of the learning curve, as I said, this is just a kind of introduction to seed your own thinking and maybe start some discussions with clients that you have. If you want to get further ahead of the learning curve, then by all means give us a buzz. Okay, that's the second adolescence. People are ready to give it a go. So, anybody got any questions?
Alan,
I loved that. That was amazing.
Go, Karen.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that, and it really resonated as well.
Good.
Being partly in that category, in that category.
Well, don't be shy to say you're in the category, because I think that giving it a title that isn't demographically led, but harks back to their formative years. People's characters are formed during adolescence, aren't they? Your values, they start to cement. They might change a little bit, but who you are as a person starts to take shape when you're an adolescent, and all we're seeing is that same person now able to act and buy things and do things and think and share opinions in a way that they didn't do back then.
Yeah, no, it's really, really enlightening. Really enjoyed it.
Good, glad you did.
I found it really useful as well, because I'm always being bombarded by respondents saying, why can't you put a 70-year-old in this group? I mean, I have to say it's not my choice and blah, blah, blah. But I do think, as I'm writing it, why?
Honestly, some of the best interactions in many respects have come from people who are over 70, because they do feel they inevitably are closer to the end of their life, and therefore almost the desire to kind of continue to be dynamic keeps going. It's not there for everybody. Other people have got health concerns or other barriers to that, but this is an attitudinally led group, and it's about the way that they respond to any particular sort of situation as a consumer, and I just think that's where the gold is being overlooked, because we just treat them as as older people
on the scrap heap.
Well, it's a homogenous group. And how many planners and kind of agency people do you come across now who are millennials are everything. It's now moving on to Gen Z, and they're a difficult group to communicate with because they don't like to communicate. Well, look at the other end of the scale. Our people are falling over themselves to tell brands what they think of them. You know, it's very eye-opening when you just, you know, as a kind of facilitator or moderator, and you've got people on screen together of this kind of age. I've had 10 minutes where I've just sat back and not said anything, because the kind of debate around advertising and you know, what's good and bad for this type of person. And we're starting to see changes. You know, we do work for an organization called Gen M, which is leading the kind of menopause discussion in many respects at the moment, the debate and the promotion of a better experience for women, and are signing up brands, you know, they've got an MTIC label that they put on products that have been proven to be beneficial for some kind of symptoms of menopause. And you know, one of the things that they started with was that I always forget whether it's 58 or 68%, but it was something of those order. You can tell I'm a qualitative researcher. 68% of women felt that brands didn't speak to them anymore, that they were irrelevant, that they were irrelevant to brands. You know, you're making me feel as though I don't matter to you, and yet I buy your products or I shop in your stores. And you know, that, because there's momentum behind menopause now currently, you know, it's being promoted as the new veganism, you know, because vegan was a very minority issue and it only affected certain people, but now it's kind of, you know, a bit more mainstream. I think the parallel's a little bit of a stretch, but anyway, that's where they're kind of talking about menopause as though it is, you know, kind of new, because there are products coming through. There are products now being specifically designed and developed to kind of ease some of the symptoms and make it easier. And it's not about HRT; it's about coping better. And having things that are helping you to cope better, which means you kind of sideline all of the mental symptoms of going through the menopause, you know, the anxiety and the sense of worthlessness and all of those other things, which is another factor why lots of women are leaving the workplace. So, you know, ask me how myself and my business partner Will, who does all my kind of quant work, how two middle-aged men ended up working for a menopause organization. My wife my wife gives me hell because I'm meant to be an expert on the menopause now. You know, just 3 years too late. There you go.
Are there any other questions for Alan?
It's okay.
Okay, well, thank you. On all of your behalf, I'd love to say thank you very much, Alan. It's been really interesting.
Yeah,
No worries.
amazing.
Great
Yeah.
turnout. And yeah, thank you. And hopefully people who give me jobs will think long and hard about that.
Yeah, well, you know, if honestly, if anybody wants to know more, has specific questions, or gets into a situation where they need a reference point, then, you know, do contact me directly. We're very happy to kind of help where we can.
Okay. Well,
All right.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for your time. Have a good evening. And
All right.
see you at the next one in December. Bye.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
very much.